welcome to Mastermind with me, John Humphrys. In the spotlight tonight are Sarah Bradley, a teacher whose specialist subject is Homer's Odyssey; Thisbe Archer, a nurse who'll be answering questions on the good life; James Metcalf, a cyber security consultant whose subject is the history of Portsmouth; and Harry Heath, a buyer, his subject, Taika Waititi. Four more contenders putting themselves to the test tonight in the hope that they might become the nation's mastermind. In order to get through to the next round, of course, they must face two sets of questions under the tyranny of the clock. First 2 minutes on their specialist subject and then 2.5 minutes of general knowledge. So let's ask our first contender to join us, please. And your name is?
Sarah Bradley.
Your occupation?
Teacher.
And your chosen subject?
Homer's Odyssey.
One of the two great epic poems of ancient Greece. Here we go. The Odyssey tells the story of the 10-year journey made by Odysseus as he returns from the Trojan War to his island kingdom, where a group of suitors are courting his wife, Penelope. What's the name of the island?
Ithaca.
Yeah. The nymph Calypso keeps Odysseus captive for 7 years until Zeus sends one of the gods to tell her she must allow Odysseus to return to Ithaca. The god is sometimes referred to as Argeiphontes, or giant slayer. Which god?
Atlas.
Hermes. The first words spoken by a mortal character in the poem are "welcome, friend," said to Athene, who's disguised as Mentis. Athene has travelled to Ithaca to encourage this character to visit Pylos and Sparta. What is this person's name?
Athene.
No, Telemachus. The Cyclops Polyphemus is blinded by Odysseus early on in his journey from Troy. Polyphemus' father is Poseidon and his mother is a nymph. What is the nymph's name?
Thusa.
Yeah. In the land of the Laestrygonians, Odysseus sends a party to find out what sort of people live there. On their way to the town, they come across a girl drawing water from a bubbling spring. What's the name of the spring?
Arethusa.
Artakia. Only one character in the Odyssey, a swineherd in Ithaca, is addressed by Homer in the second-person form of you. What is the swineherd's name?
Eumaeus.
Yes. The goddess Circe drugs some of Odysseus' crew and transformed them into pigs. When Odysseus heads to a palace to rescue them, he's met by Hermes, who gives him a plant that will make Odysseus immune to her evil. The plant is known to the gods by what name?
Moly.
Yep, the youngest member of Odysseus' crew dies when he gets drunk and falls from the roof of Circe's palace. Odysseus later meets his ghost in Hades. What's his name?
Pass.
When Telemachus arrives at Pylos and introduces himself to the king Nestor, he says that Ithaca lies at the foot of which mountain?
Neriton.
Neon. The Phaeacians... started, so I shall finish. The Phaeacians sail Odysseus to Ithaca, and he sleeps for the whole journey. When he wakes back on his home island, he's met by Athene, who is disguised as a young man of what occupation?
Shepherd.
A shepherd, indeed. You had one pass, Sarah. That chap who got drunk and fell from the roof of Circe's palace was Elpenor. Anyway, you have now 5 points. And our next contender, please. And your name is?
Thisbe Archer.
Your occupation?
Nurse.
And your chosen subject?
The Good Life.
That immensely popular television sitcom from the 1970s. Here we go. What age has Tom Good just turned when he leaves his job as a draftsman for a life of self-sufficiency with his wife Barbara, much to the horror of his neighbours Margot and Jerry?
40.
Yep, Jerry's wife, Margot, plays Maria in the Music Society's disastrous production of The Sound of Music at Surbiton Town Hall, where she inexplicably sings a song from a different musical altogether. Which musical?
West Side Story.
Yeah. In the happy event, Margot explains to Tom that she had to change out of her night clothes before she could help him with an ill piglet. Otherwise, neighbours might think that they were wife-swapping. She claims the practice hasn't reached Surbiton yet, but it's already got as far as where?
Epsom?
Yeah. In The Green Door, Margot says, "Gingerbread men in quantity hold no fears for me, Tom." How many is she baking for the Music Society's pre-season conference?
42.
200. In Home Sweet Home, what's the name of the pig whose carcass Tom and Barbara have brought back from the abattoir? Richard Briers, who plays Tom, once said that in real life he couldn't eat bacon for about 6 months after working with piglets on set.
Perky?
Yep. In our speaker today, what breed are the 24 chickens that are staying in Barbara's kitchen while she decides which ones to keep? Lady Truscott, played by Angela Thorne, correctly identifies the breed.
Rhode Island Red?
White Sussex. When Barbara gives a talk on self-sufficiency at the remand home Grand House, a youth tells Tom that he listened to Barbara's talk so attentively because he could see right through her dress. Which actor plays the youth?
Robert Lindsay.
Yeah, in The Weaver's Tale, what's the name of the shop in Dorking where Margot sees a spinning wheel in the window? Jerry ends up buying it for her as a peace offering after they have a row about her frivolous spending habits.
JD Antiques?
No, Art Breeze Antiques. Which actor turned down the role of Jerry Ledbetter in order to appear in an Alan Ayckbourn play he later starred with Penelope Keith in a different BBC sitcom?
Peter Bowles.
Yeah. Which composer wrote the series theme tune? He said, I'd submitted about 3, and I didn't think much of the one the producer chose.
Burt Rhodes.
Yeah. In The Pagan Rite, when Tom asks Barbara what she misses about the old days, she replies, Liz flying in from Acapulco, Frank doing it his way on the piano, and Paul Getty playing the...
Trumpet?
spoons. No passes, Thisbe. You've scored 7 points. And our next contender, please. And your name is?
James Metcalfe,
Your occupation?
cyber security consultant.
And your chosen subject?
The history of Portsmouth.
Portsmouth, that city in the English southeast, became the home of the Royal Navy. Here we go. The origin of Portsmouth's Royal Dockyard lies in the construction of a naval dry dock, which was the first to be built in England. The construction took place during the reign of which Tudor monarch?
Henry VII.
Yep. Number 1, Bush Villas, Elm Grove, South Sea, was the home in the 1880s of a well-known writer who was, at the time, practicing as a doctor. What was his name?
Sir Arthur Conan Doyle.
Yep. In 1628, George Villiers, Duke of Buckingham, was killed by a disaffected officer named John Felton, supposedly in a high street inn, while he was preparing for an expedition to relieve besieged Huguenots in a port in southwestern France. Which port?
La Rochelle.
Yep. In 1845, a cavalry officer was challenged to a duel at the Quebec Hotel, now Quebec House, after he'd made advances towards the wife of one Lieutenant Henry Hawkey of the Royal Marines. Hawkey won the duel, and the officer later died from his injuries. What was his name?
Pass.
Which church, originally part of the Domus Dei Hospital, was the venue for the marriage of Charles II to Catherine of Braganza in 1662? At the time, it was known as the Governor's House.
The Garrison Church.
Yeah. The town of Portsmouth was excommunicated between 1450 and 1508 after the Bishop of Chichester was killed there by disgruntled soldiers and sailors in a dispute over their pay. What was the bishop's name?
De Moydens.
No, Adam Mullins. Which shopping centre opened in 1966 but demolished in 2004 was once described by the Prince of Wales as a mildewed lump of elephant droppings?
The Tricorn.
Yeah. In the reign of Charles II, the defences of Portsmouth were remodelled by a Dutch military engineer who'd served for the Royalists in the English Civil War. What was his name?
Bernard de Gon.
Yep. Ferry services to the Isle of Wight have departed from several different piers in Portsmouth. When the service began, it first operated from one such pier, opened in 1842. Which pier?
South Parade Pier.
Victoria. Helen Duncan, who was prosecuted in 1944 for holding a séance in Copnall Road, was the last person to be imprisoned under an Act of Parliament of 1735. What was the name of the Act?
The Witchcraft Act.
Yes, the Witchcraft Act. 1 pass, James. The cavalry officer who was challenged to a duel was Captain James Alexander Seaton. You have scored 7 points. And our final contender, please. And your name is?
Harry Heath.
Your occupation?
Buyer.
And your chosen subject?
Taika Waititi.
Taika Waititi, the artist, writer, actor, director, made lots of successful films. New Zealand. Here we go. Waititi has used his father's surname on most of his recent films, but has also sometimes used his mother's surname, which he has said is still the name on his passport. What is that?
Cohen.
Yep. In the opening scenes of Eagle vs. Shark, Waititi's first feature film as director, Lily, played by Lauren Horsley, is made redundant from a fast food restaurant. What's the name of the restaurant?
Meaty Boy.
Yep. Waititi has said that he spent 2 years in Europe where he worked as an artist in the 1990s and that he considers the city in which he lived to be one of his hometowns. Which city?
Munich.
Berlin. One of Waititi's first screen acting roles was in a 1999 film directed by Robert Sarkis, sometimes known as Crime 101. Waititi plays the role of Alex and is credited as Taika Cohen. Which film?
Scarface.
Yep. Waititi graduated from Victoria University in Wellington in 1996 with a degree in theatre and film. He later provided the illustrations for a 2004 short story collection by the New Zealand author Joe Randerson. What's the title of the book?
Pass.
In Waititi's second feature film, Boy, two of Boy's friends are called Dallas and Dynasty. Their little sister shares her name with which other television series?
Falcon Crest.
Yeah. The feature film, What We Do in the Shadows, is a spoof documentary about a group of vampires who share a house in Wellington. During the film, they're invited to the event of the year due to take place at 6 p.m. on the 6th of June. What event?
The Unholy Masquerade.
Yes, Waititi received an Oscar nomination for one of his early short films, though he didn't win. At the ceremony in 2005, he pretended to be asleep when the nominations were read. What's the title of the film?
2 Cars, One Night.
Yep. In Hunt for the Wilder People, the troubled youth, Ricky Baker, is fostered by Bella and Heck. On Ricky's first night in their home, Heck asks him, "You ever worked on a farm before, or are you just..." what?
Pass.
Waititi directed the 2017 film Thor Ragnarok and provided the voice of a character who also has a brief role in the 2019 film Avengers Endgame. What's the name of the character?
Korg.
Yep. In the opening scene of Jojo Rabbit, starts off finish, Jojo gets dressed in a Hitler Youth uniform and chats with his imaginary friend Adolf Hitler, played by Waititi. What 3-digit number is shown on the epaulets of Jojo's shirt?
443.
Is correct. It was indeed. You have 2 passes. Heck asks him, "You ever worked on a farm before, or are you just ornamental?"
Yeah.
And the title of that book, the short story collection, The Keys to Hell. You have, Harry, 8 points.
Thank you very much.
Close contest there. Let's have a look at all of the scores. In 4th place with 5 points, Sarah. Joint 2nd place, 7 points apiece, Thisbe and James. 1st place with 8 points, Harry. So, general knowledge now. And if there is a tie at the end of this round, then the number of passes is taken into account and the person with the fewer passes is the winner. And if they are tied on passes as well, then there has to be a tie break. So, let's have Sarah again, please. And you start out with 5, Sarah, but you've got 2.5 minutes now of general knowledge. So, loads of time. Here we go. What's the word for the break between acts in a play or an opera when the audience is allowed to leave the auditorium? In North America, it's usually called an intermission.
Pass.
The most common cause of dementia is a degenerative disease named after the German neuropathologist who first described it in the 1900s. What disease?
Alzheimer's.
Yep. What term for a person who spies on someone else comes from the legend of Lady Godiva? It was the name given to the tailor who was said to be the only person who watched her as she rode naked through Coventry.
Foyer.
Peeping Tom. Which American singer's acoustic electric guitar became the most expensive sold at auction when it was bought for $6 million? In June 2020, he played it in a famous MTV performance just 5 months before his death in '94.
Eric Clapton.
Kurt Cobain. A bronze statue unveiled in 2016 in the grounds of St. Thomas's Hospital in London honours a Jamaican businesswoman who cared for British soldiers during the Crimean War. What was her name?
Pass.
A 2019 film with the subtitle Dark Fate, which stars Linda Hamilton and Arnold Schwarzenegger, is part of a franchise that began in 1984. What franchise?
Terminator.
Yep. Carrantoo Hill, the central peak of McGillicuddy's Reeks, is the highest mountain in which European country?
Switzerland.
Ireland. What name taken from French is applied to the type of bicycle gears in which the chain can be moved between multiple sprockets of different sizes?
Pass.
Which 1953 novel by L.P. Hartley opens with the line, "The past is a foreign country, they do things differently there"?
Pass.
According to a 1912 song written by Harry Williams and Jack Judge that became popular with soldiers during the First World War, it's a long way to...
Tipperary.
Yeah. What three-digit emergency telephone number was introduced in the UK in 1995 as an alternative to 999?
111.
112. In a children's television series of the 1940s and 50s, the presenter and pianist Annette Mills was accompanied by a string puppet mule. What was his name?
Muffin.
Yep. Which city in Texas, the third largest in the state, was founded in 1841 by a trader from Tennessee named John Neely Bryan? A model of his log cabin is one of the city's tourist attractions.
Galveston.
Dallas. The ancient Egyptian deity known as Ra was a god of what celestial body?
Sun.
Yep. Which actor of the silent era played the romantic lead in 1920s films such as The Sheikh and Blood and Sand? News of his death at the age of just 31 attracted thousands of mourners to the funeral home.
Pass.
Well, I can tell you what time's up. Valentino, Rudolph Valentino. Your other passes, The Go-Between was the L.P. Hartley novel. Derail Your Gears is what you have on a fancy bike. Mary Seacole was the name of that woman who cared for British soldiers during the Crimean War. And you'll be cross about this one. The break in between acts in a play is called an interval. You have now, Sarah, 10 points.
Thank you.
And next up, Thisbe, please. And Thisbe, you start out with 7 points. And you have the general knowledge round coming up. Here we go. A part of traditional Highland dress resembles a skirt and is made from tartan cloth, which is pleated at the back and pinned at the front. What's the name of it?
Kilt.
Yeah. The Strait of Gibraltar separates Spain from which North African country?
Morocco.
Yep. Mintonette was the original name given to a six-a-side sport invented in 1895 by William G. Morgan as a less demanding alternative to basketball. Which sport?
Netball.
Volleyball. An increase of 5 degrees Celsius is equal to an increase of how many degrees Fahrenheit?
2.
9. The 2015 documentary film Amy uses mainly archive footage to tell the story of a British singer who died in 2011. What was her surname?
Amy Winehouse.
Yes. The artwork Equivalent 8 by Carl Andre, which was bought by the Tate Galleries in 1972, caused some controversy when it was exhibited 4 years later. The work consists of a rectangular arrangement of 120 items. What items?
Fingernails.
Bricks. Which Vietnamese political leader won the 1973 Nobel Peace Prize together with Henry Kissinger for the negotiation of a ceasefire between North Vietnam and America? He refused the award because he thought that peace had not been achieved.
Gerald Ford.
Les Docteurs, a musical adaptation of a Tom Hanks film about a boy who makes a wish and finds himself transformed into an adult, was revived in the West End in 2019 with Jay McGuinness in the leading role. What's the title of the film?
Big.
Yep. In 2001, an Australian writer won the Booker Prize for the second time for his novel, The True History of the Kelly Gang. What's his name?
John Miller.
Peter Carey. What group had 3 successive UK top 10 singles in the 1980s with Hold Me Now, Doctor, Doctor, and You Take Me Up? They were a trio in spite of their name.
Bay City Rollers.
Thompson Twins. The 6 volumes of memoirs of a British Prime Minister, which cover the period from 1914 to 1963, include the titles Tides of Fortune, Riding the Storm, and Pointing the Way. Which Prime Minister?
Clement Attlee.
Harold Macmillan. Which group of islands is separated from mainland Scotland by the Pentland Firth?
Orkney Isles.
Yes. In a 1968 film, a young woman, played by Mia Farrow, discovers that she's the mother of the Devil's Child. What film?
Rosemary's Baby.
Yes. In the human skeleton, the lower leg consists of 2 long bones, the tibia, and a more slender bone, sometimes known as the calf bone. What's the medical name for this bone? Take a guess.
Fibia.
I'm afraid not. You said fibia.
Oh, it's fibula.
Fibula, I'm afraid. This is the Mastermind effect. Thisbe, you have 13 points. And now, James again, please. And you start out with 7 points, James. Score to beat as it stands is 13. Here we go. The Dry January campaign was launched in 2013 to encourage people to give up what for a month?
Alcohol.
Yeah. A large annual carnival held as a celebration of Caribbean culture is named after the area of West London where it takes place over 2 days at the end of August. What's the name of the carnival?
Notting Hill.
Yep. The radio presenter Cerys Matthews was previously the lead singer of a Welsh pop group whose biggest UK hit was Mulder and Scully in 1998. What was the name of the band?
Catatonia.
Yep. Which British general was killed when the Sudanese city of Khartoum fell to the forces of the Mahdi in 1885? His death turned him into a national hero.
General Gordon.
Yep. The Pating, the Morax and the Remnants are alien creatures who've appeared in a science fiction television series. Which one?
Star Trek.
Doctor Who, an American company set up in 1915 by a family of Italian migrants, initially to make aircraft parts, became better known for the whirlpool bath, which it developed in the 1950s and is named after them. What was their surname?
Jacuzzi.
Yeah. In ancient Greece, Milo of Croton was said to carry around a live ox on his shoulders to improve his strength. In which sport was he a renowned champion?
Wrestling.
Yeah. Who was nominated for a Best Actor Oscar for playing the third-rate comedian Archie Rice in the 1960 film version of John Osborne's play The Entertainer?
Sir Laurence Olivier.
Yep. The English title of the second book of the Bible is a word for a mass departure of people. What word?
Exodus.
Yep. The 9th American president, who was the first to die in office and served for just 32 days, had the first names William Henry. His surname?
Pass.
What colour flag with an orange disc shown with the car number is displayed during a Formula One Grand Prix to direct a driver to make a pit stop because of a mechanical problem?
Pass.
The 2013 book entitled Bonkers, My Life in Laughs is a memoir by an actress and screenwriter known for her comedy partnership with Dawn French. What's her name?
Jennifer Saunders.
Yep, the man who was appointed physician to James I of England in 1618 and later served in the same role to Charles I is also credited as the first person to discover that blood circulated around the body. What was his name?
Jenna.
William Harvey. A person described as monegasque is a native or inhabitant of a small country in Western Europe. Which country?
Andorra.
Monaco. A biomedical research institute which opened in Midland Road in London in 2016 is named after one of the scientists who identified the structure of DNA. What was his name?
Pass.
What material obtained from, I've started, so finished, from the latex of certain Southeast Asian trees was historically used in golf balls and as electrical insulation and now in dental fillings?
Amalgam.
No, gutta percha. Here are your passes. You had 3 of them. Francis Crick was the chap they named that research institute after. Black is the colour of the Formula One flag, shown when the car has to make a pit stop. And it was William Henry Harrison who survived in office as president for only 32 days. James, you have now 16 points. And finally, Harry again, please. And you start out with 8 points, Harry. The score to beat is 16. If you want to get through to the semi-finals, here we go. The Ship Canal opened in 1894, which connects Salford Quays to the estuary of the River Mersey, is named after which city?
Manchester.
Yep. In December 2019, a climate activist became the youngest individual to be named as Time Magazine's Person of the Year. Who is she?
Greta Thunberg.
Yeah. How is the architect Halvard Solness described in the English title of an 1890s play by Henrik Ibsen?
Pass.
What term for a post-mortem examination comes from Greek words that mean seeing for oneself?
Autopsy.
Yeah. In 1967, Celtic became the first British football club to win the European Cup. Who was their manager at the time?
Pass.
A 2008 film set in Mumbai tells the story of a young man, played by Dev Patel, who's forced to prove that he has not been cheating before he can proceed to the final round of a television quiz show. What's the title of the film?
Slumdog Millionaire.
Yep, a measure of a country's economic activity is often expressed as its GDP. What do those letters stand for?
Gross domestic product.
Yep. Which British novelist and poet wrote the 1929 memoir Goodbye to All That? It details his time on the Western Front during the First World War.
Roald Dahl.
Robert Graves. Which television sitcom, first shown in '69 and set in Liverpool, was co-written by Carla Lane? Over several series, it variously starred Polly James, Pauline Collins and Nedis Hughes.
Birds of a Feather.
The Liver Birds. The in-service training days for teachers, now commonly known as inset days, were introduced by the Conservative government in the 1980s and were informally named after the Education Secretary at the time. What's his name?
Pass.
It's term greenfield is used in planning to describe land in a rural area that has not previously been built on. What's the corresponding term for a disused or derelict site in an urban area that's become available for redevelopment?
Brownfield.
Yeah, which American singer had her first UK #1 album with Red in 2012? It features the hit singles We're Never Ever Getting Back Together and I Knew You Were Trouble.
Taylor Swift.
Yep, who departed in the glory of the sunset in the purple mists of evening to the land of the hereafter in the final verse of an epic poem by Henry Wadsworth Longfellow?
Hiawatha.
Yep, a savoury dish of scrambled eggs on toast served with anchovies or anchovy paste is named after a bird of the sandpiper family, though it's not actually an ingredient. What's the name of this dish?
Pass.
Which pair of organs are directly affected by the chronic condition silicosis? It's most commonly experienced by coal miners and others who work with rock or sand.
Lungs.
Yep. In Greek mythology, what's the name of the goddess of the rainbow and a messenger to the gods?
Pass.
A military incident at Marco Polo Bridge in 1937 sparked a war between China and another Far Eastern country. Which one?
Japan.
Is correct. You had 5 passes. Iris was the name of the goddess of the rainbow. Scotch woodcock is the name of that savoury dish, scrambled eggs and all the rest of it. Kenneth Baker was the education secretary. Jock Stein was the manager of Celtic. And the name of that Ibsen play was The Master Builder. Harry, you have now scored 18 points. Well, there it is. We have a result, and all of those scores are in 4th place with 10 points, Sarah. 3rd place with 13 points, Thisbe. 2nd place, 16 points, James. 1st place, 18 points, Harry, which means that he goes through to the semi-finals. Congratulations to him. And if you'd like to be a contender in the next series, do go to our website, bbc.co.uk/mastermind, and you can follow us at Mastermind Quiz. And do join us again next time for more Masterminds. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.
I picked Taika Waititi as my specialist subject because I think his films have got a great sort of mix of comedy and tragedy, and he sort of strikes the balance just right, so you can laugh, but they've got real substance behind them as well.
Waititi received an Oscar nomination for one of his early short films, though he didn't win. At the ceremony in 2005, he pretended to be asleep when the nominations were read. What's the title of the film?
2 Cars, One Night.
Yep.
You might have noticed the shirt. It's a little bit similar to some of the ones that Taika Waititi himself wears occasionally, so I thought, you know, take a bit of him with me on stage and it'll make things a bit easier.
1st place, 18 points, Harry.
Now I've got through this round, I've got plenty to go on. I better start revising straight away, I think. I want to get to the final.